Hello everybody, Douglas here. Welcome to another episode of Doses and Movie Reviews. Let's talk about C.S. Lewis. Born on November 29th, 1898 as Clive Staples Lewis and died on November 22nd, 1963. During his life, he was close friends with Lord of the Rings author J.R.R. Tolkien, who he worked at Oxford University as English faculty with. He's also known for writing novels such as his science fiction space trilogy, his Christian book The Pilgrim's Regress, and another science fiction one, The Dark Tower. But probably his best-known books are the Chronicles of Narnia series, which is regarded as a classic of children's literature. The first book published in the series, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, has had a bunch of film adaptations, like the 10-part serial made by ABC Weekend Television for ITV, which broadcasted in 1967, adapted by Trevor Preston and directed by Helen Standage. There was also the 1979 animated miniseries directed by Peanuts director Bill Melendez. The third adaptation was the 1988 program by the BBC, which used a mix of live actors, animatronic puppets, and animation, which even got nominated for an Emmy Award and won a BAFTA. In the early 2000s, Andrew Adamson, who previously directed the first two Shrek movies, would go on to make his own film adaptation of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which would be theatrically released. And it's what I'm reviewing today. Released on December 9th, 2005, the movie is Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. In 1940, during World War II, the London suburb of Finchley is under attack by German bombers.
Ziel erreicht in 10 Sekunden. Dieses Flakfeuer ist unglaublich. Mach schnell. Wir haben unser Ziel verpasst. Trotzdem Treffung.
In the house of the Pevensey family, Helen Pevensey, played by Judy McIntosh, and her kids run out to their bomb shelter. Edmund, played by Skander Keynes, runs back into the house to retrieve a picture of his father who is fighting in the war, and Peter, played by William Moseley, goes after him. They barely manage to avoid getting hurt from an exploding window caused by a bomb landing nearby, and they run out to the shelter.
Hurry! Why can't you do anyone but yourself? You're so selfish. You could have got us killed. Stop it! Why can't you just do as you're told?
The next morning, the Pevensey kids, along with many other kids, are sent away while their parents stay in Finchley.
Bye, my dear. My mum will miss you.
As the train starts its journey, the opening credits roll. The kids arrive at their stop and are picked up by Professor Diggory Kirk's strict housekeeper, Mrs. McCready, played by Elizabeth Hawthorne.
Mrs. McCready?
I'm afraid so. Is this it then? Haven't you brought anything else?
No, Mum. It's just us.
Small favors.
The kids are taken to the professor's house where Mrs. McCready tells them some rules.
There will be no shouting or running. No improper use of the dumb waiter. No touching of the historical artifacts. And above all, there shall be no disturbing of the professor.
One rainy day, the kids play hide and seek. Lucy, played by Georgie Henley, enters a spare room and sees something covered with a sheet and finds a wardrobe behind it. She hides in it and waits for Peter to come find her. As she goes deeper into the wardrobe, she finds herself in a snowy forest and comes to a lamppost. She then hears something behind the trees, and it's a fawn named Mr. Tumnus, played by James McAvoy, and he tells her she's in Narnia.
Everything from the lamppost all the way to Castle Cair Paravel on the Eastern Ocean. Every stick and stone you see, every icicle, is Narnia.
It's an awfully big wardrobe.
Mr. Tumnus then takes Lucy over to his house for tea and he plays her some music. After that, everything goes dark, and Mr. Tumnus tells Lucy he's doing something horrible.
I'm kidnapping you. It was the White Witch. She's the one who makes it always winter, always cold. She gave orders. If any of us are to find a human wandering in the woods, we're supposed to turn it over to her.
But Mr. Thomas, you wouldn't. I thought you were my friend.
Mr. Tumnus takes Lucy back to the lamppost where they first met, and Lucy returns to the real world and thinks her siblings were wondering where she was. However, no time has passed in the real world. Lucy tries to show the others Narnia, but the wardrobe now has a wooden back, making them think Lucy was imagining this.
But I wasn't imagining!
That's enough, Lucy.
I wouldn't lie about this.
Well, I believe you.
You do?
Yeah, of course. Didn't I tell you about the football field and the bathroom cupboard?
No, will you just stop? You just have to make everything worse, don't you?
It's just a joke.
When are you gonna learn to grow up?
Shut up! You think you're dumb, but you're not!
Well, that was nicely handled.
But it really was fair.
Susan's right, Lucy. That's enough.
That night, Lucy can't sleep, so she gets out of bed and goes back into the wardrobe to see Mr. Tumnus, and Edmund, who just finished going to the bathroom, follows her and ends up in Narnia.
Lucy, where are you? Lucy, I think I believe you now.
Edmund wanders off looking for Lucy, and a sleigh passes by, and the driver, a dwarf named Ginnerbrick, played by Kieran Shaw, tries to kill him.
Leave me alone! What is it now, Ginnerbrick?
Make him let me go! I didn't do anything wrong!
How dare you address the Queen of Narnia?
I didn't know!
You will know better hereafter.
Wait.
Janice the White Witch, played by Tilda Swinton, then has Edmund sit down with her, and she gives him some hot cocoa and Turkish delight and tells him she would like to make him king.
Really?
Of course, you'd have to bring a family.
Oh. Do you mean Peter would be king too?
No. But a king needs servants.
I guess I could bring.
She then goes off, and Lucy approaches Edmund.
Where have you been? With Mr. Tumnus. He's fine. The White Witch hasn't found out anything about him meeting me.
The White Witch?
She calls herself the Queen of Narnia, but she really isn't.
Edmund and Lucy return to the real world, and Lucy tries to tell Peter and Susan, the latter played by Anna Popplewell, about Narnia again, and Edmund went too. However, he lies, saying that he was playing along with her. This makes Lucy upset, and she runs into the professor, played by Jim Broadbent.
You children are one shenanigan shy of sleeping in the stable. Professor, I'm sorry. I told them you were not to be disturbed.
It's all right, Mrs. McCready. I'm sure there's an explanation. But first of all, I think this one is in need of a little hot chocolate.
Come along, dear.
Professor then talks to Peter and Susan, and they tell him about Lucy pretending there's another world inside the upstairs wardrobe. However, the professor seems to believe in Narnia, and he wonders why Peter and Susan don't.
I mean, logically, it's impossible.
What do they teach in schools these days?
Edmund said they were only pretending.
And he's usually the more truthful one, is he?
No. This would be the first time.
Well, if she's not mad and she's not lying, then logically, we must assume she's telling the truth.
You're saying that we should just believe her?
She's your sister, isn't she? You're a family. You might just try acting like one.
The next day, while the kids are playing cricket outside, Edmund hits the ball and it breaks through a window.
Well done, Ed.
You bowled it! The McCready!
Come on!
The kids run upstairs to the spare room, hide in the wardrobe, and they all end up in Narnia. Peter and Susan apologize to Lucy for not believing her, and Peter makes Edmund apologize to Lucy for lying about pretending. Lucy then decides that they should visit Mr. Tumnus, so they grab some coats and make their way to Mr. Tumnus's house. But when they get there, they see the house is a wreck and Mr. Tumnus is missing.
Who would do something like this?
Peter then finds a letter saying Mr. Tumnus was arrested for being with a human. Susan says they should go back, and Lucy says she's the human Mr. Tumnus was with. They then leave the house and meet Mr. Beaver, voiced by Ray Winston, and he shows Lucy the hanky she gave to Mr. Tumnus.
He got it to me just before they took him.
Is he all right?
Further in.
What are you doing?
She's right. How do we know we can trust him?
He said he knows the fawn.
He's a beaver. He shouldn't be saying anything.
Everything all right?
Yes. We were just talking.
It's better left for safer quarters.
He means the trees.
The kids follow Mr. Beaver to his house, where he and his wife, Mrs. Beaver, voiced by Dawn French, tell them Aslan is on the move. Edmund asks who Aslan is, and Mr. Beaver says Aslan is the true king of Narnia, and he's returning after a long time, and there's a prophecy.
With Adam's flesh and Adam's bone, sits at Cair Paravel enthroned. The evil time will be over and done.
You know, that doesn't really rhyme.
Yeah, I know it don't, but look, you're kind of missing the point.
It has long been foretold that 2 sons of Adam and 2 daughters of Eve will defeat the White Witch and restore peace to Narnia.
And you think we're the ones?
Well, you better be, because Aslan's already fitted out your army.
However, Susan is unsure about them being the 2 sons of Adam and 2 daughters of Eve, and they get ready to leave. However, Edmund's missing. He makes his way to Jadis's castle, and the others follow him.
Hurry!
They'll hear ya. No!
Get off me!
Playing into her hands.
We can't just let him go.
He's our brother!
He's the bait. The witch wants all 4 of you.
Why?
To stop the prophecy from coming true. To kill ya.
Edmund enters the castle, and Susan blames Peter for this.
My fault.
None of this would have happened if you had just listened to me in the first place.
Oh, so you knew this would happen?
I didn't know what would happen. Which is why we should have left while we still could.
Stop it! This isn't going to help Edmund.
She's right. Only Aslan can help your brother now.
Then take us to him.
Edmund sees a bunch of stone statues in the castle. He draws a mustache and glasses on one of them, then meets a wolf named Mogrim, voiced by Michael Madsen, who takes him to Jadis's throne room.
Wait here.
Jadis then comes in, and she's angered because Edmund didn't bring his siblings.
I tried. Edmund, I asked so little of you. They just don't listen to me.
Couldn't even do that.
Oh, I did bring them halfway. They're at the little house at the dam with the beavers.
Well, I suppose you're not a total loss then, are you?
Jadis sends a pack of wolves led by Mogrim to hunt down Edmund's siblings and the beavers. The kids and beavers escape through a tunnel, and they find a bunch of other forest animals who have all been turned to stone.
I'm so sorry, dear.
He was my best mate.
What happened here?
They then meet a fox voiced by Rupert Everett.
Relax. I'm one of the good guys.
Yeah? Well, you look an awful lot like one of the bad ones.
An unfortunate family resemblance. But we can argue breeding later. Right now, we've got to move.
What did you have in mind?
The wolves come out of the tunnel and demand Mr. Fox to tell them where the kids are.
Humans here in Narnia. Now, that's a valuable bit of information, don't you think?
Your reward is your life.
It's not much.
But still. Where are the fugitives?
North. They ran north.
Smell them out.
Meanwhile, Edmund is chained up in the dungeon where he meets Mr. Tumnus.
What's left of him? You're Lucy Pevensy's brother?
I'm Edmund.
Yes. You have the same nose. Is your sister all right? Is she safe?
I don't know.
Jadis then comes in and tells Edmund the wolves tore the beaver's dam apart, but neither they or Edmund's siblings were there. Edmund then tells her they said something about Aslan, so she orders him to tell her where Aslan is.
I don't know. I left before they said anything. I wanted to see you.
Jadis then calls a guard to come in and free Mr. Tumnus, and then tells him why he's there.
You're here because he turned you in for sweeties. Take him upstairs. And ready my sleigh. Edmund misses his family.
A few minutes later, Jadis takes Edmund in her sleigh, and they ride off to find Edmund's siblings who are crossing a frozen river with the beavers. Suddenly, somebody in a sleigh is coming. They think it's the witch, and they hide in a small cave. After a minute, Mr. Beaver goes to see if she's gone.
Come here, come here. I hope you've all been good, because there's someone here to see ya.
They come out of the cave and meet Santa Claus, or as he's referred to in this film, Father Christmas, played by James Cosmo.
Merry Christmas, sir.
It certainly is, Lucy. Since you have arrived.
Look, I've put up with a lot since I got here. But this...
We thought you were the witch.
Yes, I'm sorry about that, but in my defense, I have been driving one of these longer than the witch.
I thought there was no Christmas in Narnia.
No, not for a long time. But the hope that you have brought, your majesties, is finally starting to weaken the witch's power. Still, I dare say you could do with these.
Father Christmas then gives the kids weapons as Christmas gifts. Lucy gets a bottle containing liquid that can cure any injury called Juice of the Fire Flower and a knife. Susan's given a bow and arrows and a horn, and whenever she blows into it, help will come. And finally, Peter receives a sword and shield.
Bear them well and wisely. Now, I must be off. Winter is almost over. And things do pile up when you've been gone 100 years. Long live Aslan.
Father Christmas then rides off, and the kids and beavers must cross a melting river.
Wait, maybe I should go first.
Maybe you should.
You've been sneaking second helpings, haven't you?
Well, you never know which meal's going to be your last. Especially with your cooking.
Mum knew what we were doing.
Mum's not here.
The wolves then arrive, and Peter holds off Mogrim as the frozen waterfall crumbles down, sending everybody floating along the river. The kids and beavers make it to shore, and spring arrives. Meanwhile, Jadis and Edmund are at the waterfall, and the wolves arrive with Mr. Fox, and Jadis orders him to tell her where Aslan is.
Wait! No! Don't! Beaver said something about the stone table, and that Aslan had an army there.
An army?
Thank you, Edmund. I'm glad this creature got to see some honesty. Before he dies.
No!
Kids and beavers arrive at Aslan's camp, where they meet Aslan himself, who is a lion, voiced by Liam Neeson. They explain that Edmund was captured by the White Witch, and Peter blames himself for it.
I was too hard on him.
We all were. Sir, he's our brother.
I know, dear one. But that only makes the betrayal all the worse. This may be harder than you think.
Later, Susan and Lucy are attacked by Mogrim and another wolf. Susan blows her horn, and Peter comes to save them, followed by Aslan and some warriors. Mogrim jumps onto Peter, who kills him with his sword. The other wolf runs off, and the warriors follow him as Aslan knights Peter.
Rise, Sir Peter Wolfsbane, Knight of Narnia.
The warriors arrive at the witch's camp, free Edmund, and tie Gingerbrick to a tree.
You're not going to kill me.
Not yet. We have work to do.
Later, Edmund reunites with his siblings.
What's done is done. There is no need to speak to Edmund about what is past.
Hello.
Are you all right?
I'm a little tired.
Get some sleep. And Edmund, try not to wander off.
The next day, Susan does some archery practice while Lucy watches her, and Peter and Edmund do some horseback riding and sword fighting. Suddenly, the White Witch arrives seeking Edmund, calling him a traitor.
His offense was not against you.
Have you forgotten the laws upon which Narnia was built?
Do not cite the deep magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written.
Then you'll remember well that every traitor belongs to me. His blood is my property.
Try and take him then.
Do you really think that mere force will deny me my right? Little king. Aslan knows that unless I have blood as the law demands, all of Narnia will be overturned and perish in fire and water. That boy will die on the stone table. As is tradition. You dare not refuse me.
Aslan and Jadis enter Aslan's tent to talk about this, and when they come out, Aslan says Edmund won't die.
How do I know your promise will be kept?
That night, Susan and Lucy see Aslan walking into the forest and follow him. He soon figures them out and allows them to come with him. After walking further, Aslan says he must go on alone, but Susan and Lucy secretly still follow him to the stone table, where Jadis and many creatures are waiting for him.
Behold, the great lion.
Creatures tie Aslan up and remove his mane. He's then dragged onto the stone table with Jadis, and she stabs him with a knife, killing him.
The great cat is General, prepare your troops for battle. However short it may be.
Later, after the witching creatures have left, Susan and Lucy approach the table. Lucy tries to use her bottle of fireflower juice on Aslan, but Susan tells her it's too late.
He must have known what he was doing.
A bunch of mice then nibble on the ropes, freeing Aslan from the table, and Susan and Lucy send a message to Peter and Edmund by the trees.
Be still, my princes. I bring grave news from your sisters.
The next morning, Peter and Edmund have told the army about Aslan's sacrifice, and Edmund asks Peter to lead them. Peter's not sure he can do it, but Edmund believes he can, so later the two armies prepare for battle. At the stone table, Susan and Lucy are still mourning over Aslan, but then as they start to leave, the table cracks and Aslan is resurrected.
But we saw the knife. The witch.
If the witch knew the true meaning of sacrifice, she might have interpreted the deep magic differently. That when a willing victim who has committed no treachery is killed in a traitor's stead, the stone table will crack, and even death itself would turn backwards.
We sent the news that you were dead. Peter and Edmund will have gone to war.
We have to help them.
We will, dear one, but not alone.
Aslan, Susan, and Lucy arrive at the White Witch's castle, and Aslan turns Mr. Tumnus back.
Susan,
this is Mr. Tumnus.
Come. We must hurry and search the castle. Peter will need everyone we can find.
In the battlefield, Aslan's army has a great winning streak, but then they start to lose because the witch's army is much bigger. The witch then approaches Peter to kill him, but then Edmund approaches her and destroys her wand, but then she stabs him. This angers Peter and he runs over and fights her. Suddenly, Aslan arrives with Susan, Lucy, and many reinforcements. Aslan then attacks the witch and kills her.
It is finished.
Lucy uses her bottle of fireflower juice on Edmund and all the warriors who were killed during the battle. Later at Cair Paravel Castle, the kids become the kings and queens of Narnia. Queen Lucy the Valiant, King Edmund the Just, Queen Susan the Gentle, and King Peter the Magnificent.
Once a king or queen of Narnia, always a king or queen. May your wisdom grace us until the stars rain down from the heavens.
15 years later, the kids, now older, ride into the woods and arrive at the clearing where the lamppost is. They go back to the wardrobe and arrive back in the spare room in the professor's house as their younger selves again. The professor enters and asks them what they're doing in there.
You wouldn't believe us if we told you, sir.
Try me.
Later that night, Lucy tries to go back to Narnia through the wardrobe. However, the professor tells her that she won't get back in that way since he's tried many times before. This explains why the wardrobe had a wooden back when Lucy tried to show her siblings earlier.
Will we ever go back?
I expect so. But it'll probably happen when you're not looking for it. All the same, best to keep your eyes open.
And that was the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. What are my thoughts on it? It was really good. On a budget of $180 million, the film grossed over $745 million, making it the third highest grossing film of 2005, behind Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire and Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and got pretty good reviews from critics. Now let's move on to the production of the film. Frank Marshall and Kathleen Kennedy had been planning to make a film adaptation of the series since the early 1990s. However, they were unable to find a place to film it during 1996. Their film would have been set in modern times, which made Douglas Gresham opposed to it, and the technology had some more catching up to do. Barry Moore started negotiations with C.S. Lewis Estate in 2000, and on December 7th, 2001, the film rights of the series was given to Walden Media. Because of the success of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, it prompted the producers to stay close to the novel. Andrew Addison, who, like I said before, previously directed the first two Shrek movies, started adapting The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe right after Shrek won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature. It would be based on his own memories of the book, including starting the film with the Luftwaffe bombing and finishes with a gigantic battle, and they didn't take up much time in the book. The battle in the book is not seen until Aslan, Susan, and Lucy arrive with some reinforcements. It was changed because Adamson said he remembered it. Some other changes made for the film being the four kids all enter Narnia after accidentally breaking a window, which forces them to hide. Mr. Tumnus meets Edmund earlier, and the kids' mother's name being Helen, just like Georgie Henley's own mother. Finchley, where the Pevensies live, was inspired by Anna Popplewell, who actually is from there. Changing the circumstances when Lucy first enters Narnia, where instead of her exploring the house, Adamson felt like it would be more natural for her to see the wardrobe and use it as a hiding place while the kids are playing hide and seek. The wardrobe having carvings that tell the story of the first novel in the series chronologically, The Magician's Nephew, where Professor Kirk went to Narnia when he was young, and having the kids' father fight in the war instead of being with their mother. When casting the 4 kids, Adamson looked for actors who were actually like the Pevensey kids, and the parts went to William Moseley for Peter, Anna Popplewell for Susan, Skander Keynes for Edmund, and Georgie Henley for Lucy. For the role of the White Witch, Tilda Swinton was Adamson and Mark Johnson's first choice, and the big challenge for her was the typical evil female cliche that Lady Tremaine from Cinderella and Cruella de Vil from 101 Dalmatians, and Tilda was hired because Adamson believed that she wouldn't go there. When casting Mr. Tumnus, he was supposed to be a character who would kidnap a child, but still be likable, and Adamson stated that he's like somebody with a double agenda, where he's like a German living in Nazi Germany, finding a Jewish child with the propaganda and government, telling him to do something while his internal ethnics and morals were telling him something else. So when James McAvoy auditioned for the part, he got the double agenda, which went into his performance and reading. When looking for the voices of the creatures, such as Aslan, who was maybe the most difficult to cast, since he has to be powerful, untouchable, while simultaneously being sympathetic and vulnerable. So Liam Neeson was hired because his voice had the warmth that would draw people to him and then become fierce when shouting at the White Witch, which is a roar. Other voices in the film are Ray Winston and Don French as Mr. and Mrs. Beaver respectively. When creating the creatures, the challenge was to make them look like something that would work well on screen, since it's one thing to see an illustrated like centaur and another thing to actually make it look physically as a human animal. Integration at a believable level. They also had to feel like they were all in the same world, which required a ton of complex design work. When realizing and producing the full-size prosthetics, costumes, and animatronics, Richard Taylor reluctantly passed Adamson on to Howard Berger, and he and his team at KNB ultimately realized the creatures while Richard was able to stay involved with Howard. When creating the CGI for Aslan, they went with Rhythm and Hues, and on the day while on location, they showed the crew a little laptop with some video footage that they made of 2 girls walking down the street on the sidewalk with a real lion. For the other animals like the beavers, they were made by Sony Imageworks and had to be the most anthropomorphic animals in the film, to the point where you would relate to them as people. But keep in mind that they're animals. When filming the scene where Lucy enters Narnia for the first time, they blindfolded Georgie Henley and brought her into the set, so she would be amazed by what she sees. When creating the weapons, they were split into 3 different groups. Group 1 is hero weapons, which the actors hold for close-up. Group 2 is aluminum or aluminum-bladed weapons, which were used for the fighting scenes, and Group 3 is urethane weapons, which were made with material similar to skateboard wheel rubber, which allowed for many weapons to be made very quickly. To make the weapons look real, senior painter Sorasak and his crew would paint the finishes on them to make them look wooden and metallic to the camera. For the armor, it would often show reflections of the crew while the actors were being filmed in it. So to fix this problem, the armor had to be hammer blown over the surface, which would put small round dents on them which shattered the reflections. They also went through a difficult process to make the perfect reflective quality. For the music, it was composed by Harry Gregson Williams, who previously worked on the first 2 Shrek films, which were both directed by Andrew Adamson. And now it's time for me to give my opinion on the film. In the end, this adaptation of the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is really a good one. I even remember watching it in theaters back in, I think, the beginning of 2006. I give it a rating of 4 stars out of 5. Well, that's it for the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Be sure to join me tomorrow when I'll be reviewing the film's sequel. And if you enjoyed this video, then make sure to tell your friends about me, leave some questions in the comments below, subscribe, and hit that like button.
That's the girl's coat.
I know.